James Sullivan's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the worn leather folder containing his discharge papers, medical records, and the faded certificate that accompanied his Purple Heart. At 68, the tremor wasn't from fear. It was from the shrapnel still lodged near his spine, a souvenir from a firefight in the Mekong Delta that the surgeons had deemed too dangerous to remove. The Veterans Affairs office in downtown Richmond was busier than usual that Tuesday morning. James had arrived 15 minutes early for his 9 a.m. appointment, a habit drilled into him during his 22 years of service. The waiting room was a study in faded glory, scuffed linoleum floors, plastic chairs with cracked seats, and fluorescent lights that hummed with the persistence of angry wasps. Framed photos of past conflicts lined the walls, proud reminders of service that seemed at odds with the institutional indifference of the space itself. Number 73. A bored voice called from behind the reception desk. James looked at his ticket, number 87. He settled back into his chair, trying to find a position that didn't aggravate the constant ache in his lower back. Around him sat other veterans, a younger woman with a prosthetic leg hidden beneath jeans, an elderly man whose Parkinson's made his whole body shake, a middle-aged veteran whose eyes carried the distant look James recognized from too many mirrors. By 10:30, Jamesy's number still hadn't been called. He approached the desk where a young man, couldn't be more than 25, sat scrolling through his phone. "Excuse me," James said politely. "I had a 9 a.m. appointment. I was wondering." "You got a number?" the clerk interrupted without looking up. His nameplate read Tyler Preston. "Yes, sir. 8 to 7. But my appointment." "Then wait for your number to be called." Tyler's eyes never left his phone screen. "I understand, but it's been over an hour and a half since my scheduled." "Look, old-timer," Tyler finally glanced up, his expression a mixture of boredom and irritation. "We're backed up. You're not special. Sit down and wait like everyone else." The words stung more than James wanted to admit. He'd been called many things in his life: sergeant, sir, dad, granddad, but old-timer delivered with such casual contempt made him feel invisible. Still, he nodded and returned to his seat. Another hour passed. James's back was now screaming, the pain radiating down his left leg in waves. He'd run out of positions that provided even temporary relief. When he stood to stretch, trying to ease the pressure on his spine, Tyler called out from the desk. "Hey, sir, you need to stay seated. This is a waiting room, not a gymnasium." "I'm sorry," James explained. "I have a back injury from my service. I just need to." "Everyone here has something wrong with them. That's why it's called a veterans medical office. Sit down." James complied, his face burning with embarrassment as other veterans looked away, uncomfortable witnesses to his humiliation. At noon, a woman emerged from the back offices. Rebecca Norton, according to her badge, was the office manager. She was in her 40s, impeccably dressed in a way that suggested she worked somewhere far more prestigious than a VA office. She surveyed the waiting room with barely concealed disdain before approaching Tyler's desk. They spoke in hushed tones, occasionally glancing toward the waiting veterans. "Number 8 to 7, Tyler finally called out. James stood carefully, gathering his folder. His left leg had gone partially numb from sitting so long. "Mr. Sullivan." Rebecca's voice was clipped, professional in the way that meant she was already done with you before you'd begun. "I understand you've been asking about your appointment." "Yes. I had a 9 a.m. appointment for my disability claim review. I've been waiting." "Mr. Sullivan, we're very busy today. Your impatience isn't helping the situation." "I'm not being impatient. I'm just in considerable pain, and I was hoping." "Everyone here is in pain, Mr. Sullivan. You don't see them making a fuss." She looked him up and down, her gaze lingering on his worn jacket and scuffed shoes. "Now, I'm going to need to see your military ID and proof of service." James opened his folder and handed her his VA card and discharge papers. Rebecca examined them with exaggerated scrutiny. "These documents are quite old." "Yes. I served from 1973 to 1995. Vietnam era." Her tone suggested she was discussing something distasteful. "Yes. I did 2 tours in Vietnam and..." and you're just now filing for disability. Tyler had joined the conversation, standing beside Rebecca with his arms crossed. Seems convenient. Lot of people try to take advantage of the system. The words hit James like a physical blow. In all his years, through all the pain and the nightmares and the struggles to adjust to civilian life, he had never asked for anything he hadn't earned. The disability claim was for injuries sustained in service, documented, verified, real. I'm not taking advantage of anything, James said quietly, his voice tight with controlled emotion. I served my country for over 20 years. I have a Purple Heart, 2 Bronze Stars, and a medical discharge due to injuries sustained in combat. Sure you do, Tyler said with a smirk. You and every other guy who comes in here with a story. Tyler, a new voice interjected. Sarah Kim, one of the VA counselors, had emerged from a nearby office. That's inappropriate. Mr. Sullivan's records clearly show. I'll handle this, Sarah. Rebecca cut her off sharply. Mr. Sullivan, the problem is that we have a lot of people making claims they can't substantiate. We need to be thorough. I have all my documentation right there, James said, pointing to the folder she still held. Service records, medical records, combat citations. Papers can be faked, Tyler said, emboldened by Rebecca's presence. Something in James broke then. Not dramatically. There was no raised voice or angry outburst. Instead, it was a quiet collapse, a withdrawal into himself. He'd faced enemy fire, lost friends, carried wounded men through rice paddies under mortar fire, and returned home to a country that didn't want to acknowledge what he'd done. He'd rebuilt his life, raised a family, worked hard, and never asked for special treatment. And now, in a place that was supposed to serve people like him, he was being called a liar. I think I should go, James said softly. Probably best, Rebecca agreed, handing back his folder. Come back when you're ready to be patient and respectful of our time. Sarah started to protest again, but Rebecca silenced her with a look. James turned toward the exit, moving slowly, each step a negotiation with his damaged back. The other veterans in the waiting room watched in silence, their faces reflecting various shades of sympathy and recognition. They'd all been there, in one way or another. He was 3 steps from the door when it opened. The man who entered was in his mid-60s, tall and ramrod straight despite his age. He wore civilian clothes, press khakis and a simple blue button-down shirt, but there was no mistaking the military bearing. His hair was silver and neatly trimmed, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. But it was his eyes that commanded attention, sharp, assessing, missing nothing. James had frozen mid-step. Those eyes, that bearing, he knew them. General Thornton. The words escaped before James could stop them. The man's head turned sharply, his gaze locking onto James. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then recognition dawned, followed by something that looked like joy and sorrow mixed together. Sullivan. James Sullivan. The general crossed the waiting room in 4 long strides. My God, it is you. He gripped Jamesy's hand, then seemed to think better of it and pulled him into a brief, fierce embrace. When he stepped back, his eyes were scanning James with a practiced assessment of a commander checking his troops. So, I didn't know you were. I didn't expect, James stammered. What are you doing here, Captain? The general used James's old rank, the one he'd held before his medical discharge. I had an appointment, sir, for a disability review, but I was just leaving. Leaving? Why? The general's tone sharpened. Did your appointment get rescheduled? Not exactly, sir. Behind a reception desk, Tyler and Rebecca had gone very still. Sarah was watching with wide eyes. Explain, the general commanded, his attention now shifting to take in the whole scene. James's obvious discomfort, the defensive posture of the staff, the knowing looks of the other veterans. Before James could answer, Rebecca found her voice. I'm sorry, sir, but visiting hours are by appointment only. If you need to schedule. The general turned his gaze on her, and she faltered mid-sentence. It was a look that had made colonels rethink their decisions and made senators choose their words carefully. I am General Marcus Thornton, United States Army, retired. And you are? The color drained from Rebecca's face. Rebecca Norton, office manager. Ms. Norton, why is this veteran leaving before being seen? So, there was a misunderstanding about documentation. What misunderstanding? The general's voice could have cut glass. Tyler, displaying a catastrophic lack of judgment, attempted to explain. So, we get a lot of people in here trying to game the system. We have to verify. Were you speaking? The general didn't raise his voice, but Tyler recoiled as if struck. I was addressing Ms. Norton. General Thornton, James interjected quietly. Please, it's not necessary. Captain, with respect, I'll be the judge of what's necessary. The general's tone softened when addressing James, but his eyes remained hard. How long have you been here? Since 8:45, sir. My appointment was at 9. The general checked his watch. It's now 12:15. You've been waiting over 3 hours. Yes, sir. And in that time, what happened? James hesitated. He'd spent a lifetime not making waves, not being a burden. But something in the general's expression told him that evasion wouldn't be tolerated. I asked about my appointment twice, sir. I was told I wasn't special and to wait like everyone else. When I tried to explain about my back injury, I need to stand sometimes, I was told to sit down. When I was finally called, I was told I was impatient and that my documentation might be fake. Each sentence landed like a hammer blow. The general's jaw tightened progressively as James spoke. Your documentation might be fake, the general repeated slowly. Ms. Norton, what documentation did Captain Sullivan provide? Captain. Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Answer the question. Discharge papers, VA card, and combat citations, medical records, service record. Yes, but nothing. The general's voice was rising now, controlled but filled with an anger that made everyone in the room sit straighter. This man has a Purple Heart. He has 2 Bronze Stars. He commanded a rifle company in the IA Drang Valley when most of you weren't even born. He pulled wounded men out of a burning helicopter while taking enemy fire. I know, because I was one of those men. The silence in the waiting room was absolute. So, Rebecca tried again, her voice shaking. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't care. You saw an older veteran in worn clothes and made assumptions. He turned to address the entire room now, his voice carrying to every corner. I came here today to surprise a friend who works in this office, to thank him for his years of service helping veterans navigate this system. What I've witnessed in the last 5 minutes tells me there are some serious problems here. Tyler had gone pale. General, sir, I apologize. If I had known. If you had known what? That he saved the life of a future general. That's the only circumstance under which he deserves respect. Every person in this waiting room deserves respect. They wrote checks to this country payable up to and including their lives. Some of those checks were cashed. The rest are still honored veterans who chose to save. The general pulled out his phone. Ms. Norton, who is your regional director? Sir, please. I asked you a question. Martin Castillo, sir. The general dialed. Martin, Marcus Thornton. Yes, it's been too long. Listen, I'm at your Richmond office, and we have a situation that requires immediate attention. He paused. No, I'm not making an appointment. I'm here now, and you need to be here too. I'll be waiting. He ended the call and turned back to James. Captain, let's have a seat. Your back must be killing you. They sat together while Rebecca and Tyler stood frozen behind the desk, unsure whether to flee or stay. Sarah Kim approached slowly. General Thornton, I'm Sarah Kim, Veterans Counselor. I tried to intervene earlier. Mr. Sullivan's file is exemplary. There was no reason for any of this. The general's expression softened slightly. Thank you, Ms. Kim. Your integrity is noted. He turned to James. Tell me about your life, Captain, after you left the service. They talked while they waited, about Jamesy's 3 children, his late wife Marie who'd passed 2 years ago, his work as a high school history teacher, his grandchildren, about the back injury that had progressively worsened, the nightmares that still came sometimes, the guilt of surviving when so many hadn't. You saved my life that day, the general said quietly. I was a second lieutenant, fresh out of West Point, thought I knew everything. That ambush should have killed me. You dragged me 200 meters under fire with a bullet in your back. I never forgot. You'd have done the same, sir. Maybe, but you actually did it. 40 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit rushed through the door. Martin Castillo looked like he'd driven very fast and possibly violated several traffic laws to get there. General Thornton, he said, slightly out of breath. Sir, it's an honor. I came as soon as. He stopped, taking in the scene. The frozen staff, the watching veterans, the general sitting with an elderly veteran in worn clothes. Martin, we have a serious problem in this office. What followed was a masterclass in leadership and accountability. General Thornton laid out everything he'd witnessed and learned, his tone professional but unforgiving. He demanded to see the office's policies on veteran treatment, wait times, and staff training. He requested the security footage from the waiting room. Rebecca Norton and Tyler Preston were suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Sarah Kim was commended for her attempted intervention and asked to provide a full statement. But the general wasn't done. Martin, I want monthly reports on this office. I want every staff member retrained on their mission. And I want Captain Sullivan's claim expedited and handled with the respect and thoroughness it deserves. He paused. In fact, I'm going to personally review his file. Can you facilitate that? Of course, General. Absolutely. Good. The general stood, and everyone in the room instinctively straightened. One more thing. Every veteran in this waiting room today, they get priority treatment. They've waited long enough. He turned to address the room directly. I apologize that you witnessed this today. You deserved better. You've always deserved better. Know that changes are coming, and that your service and your sacrifices matter. They will always matter. Then, to everyone's surprise, he saluted the room. One by one, those veterans who could stand did so and returned the salute. Some had tears in their eyes. The general sat back down with James. Your appointment is going to happen today, Captain. Right now, and I'm staying until it's done. Sir, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He smiled slightly. You saved my life 37 years ago. The least I can do is make sure you get the help you've earned. Jamesy's disability claim was processed in 3 hours with a thoroughness and respect he'd never experienced. 2 specialists evaluated him on site. His records were reviewed meticulously. Every question was answered with patience and genuine concern. When it was over, James stood in the parking lot with General Thornton. The afternoon sun was warm, and despite everything, James felt lighter than he had in years. Thank you, sir, James said. For everything. For then, for today. Thank you, Captain, for your service, for your sacrifice, for reminding me why I wore the uniform for 43 years. The general extended his hand. Stay in touch. That's an order. Yes, sir. As the general walked to his car, he turned back. Captain, those kids in there, Preston and Norton, they're young, stupid, or both. They'll probably lose their jobs. But the system that created them, that allowed them to treat you that way, that's what I'm really angry about. That's what needs to change. Do you think it will, sir? Really change? General Thornton was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but I'm going to spend whatever time and influence I have left trying to make sure it does. We owe that to every person who served. He climbed into his car, then rolled down the window. Marie would be proud of how you handled yourself today, with dignity and grace, even when you weren't shown any. James's eyes filled with tears. How did you? I read your file. Remember? She was special. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, sir. As the general drove away, Sarah Kim approached James. Mr. Sullivan, I just wanted to apologize again for what happened today. It was unacceptable. You tried to help, Ms. Kim. That means something. I should have done more. I will, going forward. She smiled slightly. Your general seems like quite a man. He's not my general, James said, then corrected himself. Actually, maybe he is. Maybe he always was. James drove home slowly, his mind replaying the day's events. The humiliation had been real and painful, but so had been the redemption. More than that, though, was the sense that his voice had finally been heard, that his service had been acknowledged not just as a historical fact, but as something that still mattered, that still meant something. His daughter Karen called that evening, as she did every Tuesday. He told her about his day, about the general, about the changes that might come. "Dad, I'm so sorry you had to go through that," she said. "But I'm proud of you for staying calm. I learned a long time ago that dignity isn't something others give you," James said. "It's something you carry yourself." Today, I almost forgot that. The general reminded me. 3 months later, James received a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs. His disability claim had been approved with full benefits retroactive to his filing date. But more than that, the letter noted that his case had been instrumental in identifying systemic issues in veteran services, leading to comprehensive reforms in staff training and veteran treatment protocols. A separate, personal note was included. It was from General Thornton. "Captain Sullivan, your courage in the Ia Drang Valley saved my life and the lives of 3 other men. Your dignity in that VA office may save the dignity of countless veterans who come after you. Some battles are fought with weapons. Others are fought with patience, grace, and the refusal to let others diminish your worth. You won both kinds. Few people can say that. Your friend, Marcus Thornton, General, U.S. Army, retired." James folded the letter carefully and placed it in his leather folder, next to his Purple Heart citation and his discharge papers. Someday, his grandchildren would find it and ask about it, and he would tell them about a day when he was humiliated and hurt, and how an old friend reminded him, and an entire office, what service and respect really meant. In the end, it wasn't about a general showing up and fixing everything with rank and authority. It was about the fact that every veteran in that waiting room deserved what James received that day: respect, dignity, and the recognition that their service mattered. Some needed a 4-star general to make that point. James hoped that someday, no one would. But until then, he was grateful that General Marcus Thornton had walked through that door at exactly the right moment, seen an old friend in distress, and refused to let injustice stand. That was leadership. That was service. That was what they both fought for all those years ago. And that, James thought as he placed the letter in his folder, was worth remembering.